And in this case, these guys are fearing for their lives. This is an incredibly bad storm. These guys were experienced sailors. They were doing this route over to Tarshish regularly, and so they're fearful of what's going on here. They immediately throw the cargo overboard. Now think about that. That's the economic impact of this. Yeah, that's their money, because that was the profit of making this trip, along with what they charged Jonah. Keep in mind, Jonah paid money to get on this boat. It's costing him money to run away from God. And it's going to cost him a lot more than that before it's over. But these guys are so fearful that this storm is going to destroy their ship. They're trying to lighten the load. And they're starting to pray to their gods. It's very interesting how they're crying out to God. We're not told whether they're religious, but they all had gods. So that was a commonplace. And there are no atheists in foxholes, and apparently there are no atheists in storms on the Mediterranean Sea. Right. And so they're trying to find a God who cares for them. Isn't that interesting? They go down and find Jonah asleep. That's how much he cares about what's happening to everybody else. He's asleep. And they're saying, wake up and pray to your God. We've got to find a God who cares for us here. And I just find that very impactful to think about that. That's what you're looking for when you're in a time of great fear.
Well, and that's when God shows up in your life. So these other sailors, the mariners, that are on this ship, like this storm comes at them, and it's serious. You mentioned the monetary, the economic impact this is going to have on their lives. They think that they're going to die, and they turn to the spiritual realm, and they're looking for gods. And they ask Jonah if he's got one that they can put into the mix. But it strikes me, though, that and to our question of will God use your disobedience, God used this storm to A, get Jonah's attention, but to B, get these sailors' attention.
Big time. Yes.
Because at the end of this section, verse 16 of Jonah 1, then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows.
They're calling him Yahweh. They very quickly adopt Jonah's name for this God, this personal God who cares, because in the midst of their fear, they also decide we got to find out who's responsible for this. Which one of us on the ship is to blame? And so they cast lots in verse 7. And when they cast the lot, it fell to Jonah. And there's a verse in Proverbs 16:33 that says it's the lot is cast into the lap, but it's every decision is from the Lord. So that lot didn't just randomly fall upon Jonah. God directed it to point Jonah out to these guys. And so then they force a confession from him. They're like, Jonah, what have you done? And listen to his confession and how humiliating it is for him to admit this out loud, that he's running from the God of heaven and the God of earth. They said to him, tell us on what account this evil comes upon us. What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What is your country? And of what people are you? Who are you, Jonah? What are you doing that your God is so angry with you? And he said to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven. Do you really, Jonah?
Yeah.
If you had feared him, you'd be in Nineveh right now instead of on this boat. That's the problem. But he fears the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. The God who made this ocean, which right now is jumping up and down and throwing us side to side like we're a wadded up piece of paper. The God who made this is the God that I serve when I want to. And then the men were exceedingly afraid. They were afraid of the natural storm, but now they realize this is a supernatural storm. And this Jonah guy is responsible for it because he is not following his God. And they are now worried about the spiritual implications of this. What is this you have done? And
well, and I think
why'd you get on our boat if you're running from God?
this 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 episode and really this series is going to spend a lot of time. We'll be pretty down on Jonah, right?
Yep.
And he's earned it. But
Right. Yeah.
you know, I'm thinking of this, how this plays out in our lives, right? That, we go from God. There's this storm that happens in our life. People are caught up in it, but storms are opportunities for people to meet God, for people to see God. And so every single storm is an opportunity for us to experience God. And Jonah, in this case, yeah, he was sleeping, he was ignoring it. But when they confronted him, he could have continued to deny this.
Right.
He continued to run. But this was kind of his moment of, you know what, God, you got me.
Right.
You caught me. I tried to run. You caught me. And he fessed up. Now,
he did.
If I'm writing a movie, I'm probably writing a more dramatic way that he preaches to them and they see God. But he owned it, and he said, "This is my fault. Throw me over, and let God do with me what I deserve." But I think part of Jonah's ownership and how he handled that conviction probably led these guys to get to that verse 16, where they feared the Lord exceedingly and offered sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. So if Jonah had handled this differently, so it's like, does God use our disobedience? Yes, absolutely, he does. And he can use it. He can use our repentance of that to then impact those around us that get caught up in the storm. So yes, our disobedience can lead to stormy times for those around us, and it can cost those around us very dearly at times. But then as we begin to make our return to God as a result of that, that can have just as big an impact on them. And in this case, these guys' lives were saved physically and spiritually.